Main opposition Kuomintang Chair Cheng Li-wun says that Taiwanese have the right to self-determination, but it should not be done in opposition to China.
如果你了解台独运动，它从头到尾所有的叙事都是在反中，那么把中国描述为台湾要现代化进步的唯一的障碍，这是完全不是事实。
Cheng was speaking at an Asia Society event in New York. She says Taiwan's existence does not threaten that of China, but that the Taiwan independence movement poses a challenge to cross-strait relations. Cheng said Chinese President Xi Jinping told her that if Taiwan accepts that it is part of the Chinese nation, cross-strait differences can be worked out. This is a position Taiwan's government rejects. Beijing claims Taiwan as part of its territory and has not ruled out taking it by force.
Of course, we all want peace, but there may be a disagreement between Taiwan and Beijing over the terms of that peace. Is peace going to look like a region in which Taiwan remains self-governing democracy, or is peace going to be achieved through subjugation? That's really the concern.
For more on Cheng Li-wun's goals for her US trip, Leslie Liao spoke with David Sachs at the Council on Foreign Relations, a think tank Cheng visited on Monday.
From what you've observed so far, what are her goals kind of this time here throughout this trip to the US?
I think most Americans had no idea who Cheng Li-wun was until she was elected chairman of the KMT in November of last year. And so a lot of it is just literally people having their first opportunity to meet with her and to hear directly from her what her views are on US-Taiwan and cross-strait relations. I think if you were to ask most Americans who follow Taiwan closely, what is the one thing you know about Chairman Cheng Li-wun, they would probably say that they associate her with the push to reduce the size of the special defense budget. And so I think her mission is likely to counteract that viewpoint, to present a different picture of her stance and the KMT's stance on defense issues.
What do you think is in store for Cheng Li-wun in D.C., and what challenges might she face there?
I think that the KMT likely understands that in Washington, a major focus is on hard deterrence, on building the military capabilities that the United States needs to deter and, if need be, intervene in a Taiwan contingency, and also making sure that Taiwan has the capabilities that it needs to deter Beijing and to respond to a potential contingency. And so I think that she's going to be asked quite specific questions about capabilities that Taiwan needs to develop themselves or procure. What level of defense spending is appropriate for Taiwan, what capabilities Taiwan should have. I think it's clear that she wants to de-escalate cross-strait tensions. She wants to resume many of the functional agreements with Beijing, as well as various forms of cross-strait cooperation. But I think that there's a fundamental question of where all of it is leading.
What would need to happen for Cheng to go back to Taiwan and say, oh, this was a successful trip? And has that already happened?
I think she'll ultimately be judged within the party and probably largely within Taiwan itself by the level of engagements she gets in Washington, both from the legislative branch and from the executive branch. And I think that will determine, I think, politically, whether it's seen as a success in terms of the trip. But I do think, regardless of the access that she receives in Washington, I think that her trip, from my own perspective, is an important one.
That was David Sachs from the Council on Foreign Relations. Cheng Li-wun is now headed to Washington, D.C. for the next leg of her trip.